Hey everyone, this podcast is part of Story Mode, the podcast network of Gamefully Unemployed. You can support us and gain access to other great exclusive podcasts at patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. That's patreon.com/GAMEFULLY unemployed, which is spelled like it sounds.
All you motherfuckers are gonna pay. You are the ones who are the ball lickers. We're gonna fuck your mothers while you watch and cry like little whiny bitches. We're gonna make them eat our shit, then shit out our shit, and then eat their shit that's made up of our shit that we made them eat. And then all you motherfuckers are next. Love, Jay and Silent Bob.
Old Smith.
It's the Tom and Dave reboot!
Yeah, it is.
Dave, you realize in like 10 years, we are going to be doing a reboot.
Like us?
I think probably, right? If we're still doing this, we're going to do some stupid horse shit too. You know it. It's going to happen.
Yeah, we are. I mean, unless we're dead.
There's always that blessed possibility. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
But yeah, we're going to have some sort of reboot. Yeah.
Right. So which one of us is Jay and which one of us is Silent Bob?
I feel like we're both Silent Bob.
Yeah, I think we're both Silent Bob. Yeah.
I don't know how that works. Hey everybody.
Hello, everybody.
Hi. Welcome to Old Smith, New Smith, a Kevin Smith podcast that we have only done one of.
Yes.
Before.
Mm-hmm.
I'm one of your hosts, David Bell.
I'm a second host, Tom Ryman. Silent Tom.
And Silent Tom, and I'm Silent Dave.
Silent Dave.
So let's explain. I'll explain how everything's going down. But first, I want to thank @NerdNumbers. That is our Patreon producer who tasked us.
Indeed.
With
thank you.
This. Yeah, thank you so much. Because this is a really fun premise. And,
right, this is a
Nerd
show.
Numbers,
had we come up with this is an idea we could have come up with. Like this is something we would have done for sure.
Yeah, Nerd Numbers came up with the name, all the stuff. Nerd Numbers really.
But it just fits so perfectly within our wheelhouse that it doesn't even seem like this is a you know.
So what we're doing is we're watching Kevin Smith movies, and we're starting with an older Kevin Smith film, followed by a newer Kevin Smith film, and we're basically like closing in the gap as we go.
Mm-hmm. Closing that Smith thigh gap.
Exactly.
As it
were. we started with Clerks, and then we went to we did Clerks. We talked about Clerks. You can go listen to that episode. And now we're going all the way to the other end with Jay and Silent Bob reboot.
Mm-hmm.
A movie that you hadn't seen, Tom.
I hadn't. No, this came out in 2019.
Yeah, I had seen once. This is his last movie?
I believe this is his most recent film. But he's currently working on Clerks 3. Yeah,
he sure is. Which would have been pretty good timing if we had done Clerks and Clerks 3. But honestly, I do like comparing these two movies too, because I do think there's one very big comparison to make, or contrast rather. Mm-hmm. But for starters, we're just going to talk about the film. I'm extremely excited to hear your thoughts on this, Tom, because I had said previously, this is not a good movie, but it's a movie that touched my heart.
Yeah, this is.
It didn't finger my heart, mind you.
No,
it just touched my heart.
Yeah, it just touched it. It didn't finger blast my heart. It didn't flick my heart's bean.
Yeah, not one finger, not two fingers, not three fingers in the heart. Nothing like that.
It didn't hammer my heart. Nope.
Nope.
It didn't fist it. No.
No fisting of the heart. Tom, did it touch your heart?
Tickle. Not really.
Yeah, that's fair.
This is an extremely bad movie with a couple of laughs and one good scene, in my opinion.
Okay.
This movie actually made me very sad, but not in like a poignant way. This movie made me very sad and like, he's not funny anymore.
Right, like, he didn't do any of the jokes.
Yeah,
or he didn't do any.
It was like most of the gags in this movie. They're not even
They're all from previous films.
Right, they're not even callbacks. They're just lifted from the scripts of his other films. It's just the same bits again for most of it, which was really disappointing. Because as goofy, it's a little. I'm glad we're comparing this to Clerks, although it is a little strange we're not comparing it to Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back.
Yes, but we're sticking to the pattern.
Yeah. But like even that movie, as wacky and format breaking as it was, because like the previous View Askew movies before Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back were all. I mean, they took place in a heightened reality, but it wasn't meta. And then in Strike Back, it became meta.
Right, and it felt like they were allowed to do it for that one movie.
Mm-hmm. But that movie, it's not like it. Like I think that movie is more of what I was expecting because it does have the same function of like, hey, remember all those movies I made back in the 90s? Weren't they fun? Here's me kind of taking the piss out of myself.
Right,
and that movie really works.
And it's like a victory lap almost.
Yeah,
like,
and it's funny. It has like new jokes, and
Yeah, it has new jokes.
Mm-hmm. This one has no new jokes.
It has a couple, and they're not great.
They're really bad. Yeah, it's.
When did you laugh?
Okay.
I want to see if we laughed at the same time.
Okay, I laughed. Well, first of all, Justin Long doing his Brandon St. Randy voice just makes me laugh.
Okay.
That's his character from Zack and Miri Make a Porno. He's playing the same character. They never identify him, but it's clearly the same guy.
I did not. I did and do not find Justin Long very funny, but I don't mind Justin Long. Mm-hmm. But that wasn't one of the times for me. Go on.
But like the courtroom scene was like okay, and that's mostly because you have people like Craig Robinson and Frankie Shaw and Joe Manganiello doing goofy things, which is fun. The first time I like genuinely laughed was when they did the retread of Jay having his justice fantasy in movies. Oh
yeah, and he's getting pegged.
Yeah,
yeah,
and then he starts grabbing at Brian O'Halloran.
Yeah,
that genuinely made me laugh.
Yeah,
and the Matt Damon showing up was fun.
Matt Damon, you know what's interesting is he is playing Loki. I know that's like Loki is basically still just Matt Damon.
Yeah,
but there is like a slight difference that it's just funny to see him play Loki again, and he's kind of doing like I always thought Matt Damon and Kevin Smith was surprisingly really a good combination.
It's because
like he should have done more.
He can take that dialogue and make it believable. Like he turns
he can do the dialogue.
Yeah, he's a believable version of Brody is what it basically is.
Yeah, exactly.
Because because Jason Lee can only be Jason Lee, and Jason
also
Lee's
that Loki was written for Jason Lee, I believe.
That makes sense.
Yeah. When you go back and watch that, and it's like, oh yeah, those are the lines. Yeah, he didn't make me laugh, but he's a delight in the movie.
It's such a great cameo. There's some good that part was fun, and Chris Hemsworth made me laugh.
Chris Hemsworth is good.
Yeah.
The part that made me laugh that I'm like, it's not even like I'm ashamed of it. I'm just like, I don't know why that did it for me, was the Glengarry Glen Ross speech.
With the Klansmen led by Chris Jericho.
Yeah. I think it's just because he doesn't even change the speech.
It's the same. It's exactly the same speech. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like this like blunt force joke that made me laugh.
Well, I think why that I didn't laugh, but I was like, oh, that's neat, because it took me a second to realize what it was.
What it was, yeah.
I was like, what's he doing? And then obviously by the time he gets to "fuck you, that's my name," you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah, fuck you, that's my name. Yeah, and he's just talking about like Murray and whatever, and it's
Mitchell
just like,
and Murray, yeah.
Mitchell and Murray, and it's just the fact that he doesn't fucking try to adjust it at all. What was it? The Hemsworth? Yeah, your Hemsworth it, That was fun.
So his whole hologram was great.
Yeah, asking people not to touch him wrong.
Please don't also try to fillet my hologram. You'll burn your mouth.
Yeah.
You can either go left to rescue your children. I know if I was in this movie, which way I'd go, straight out the fucking door, mate, because I wouldn't be in this movie. It's like a great bit.
Yeah, it is a great bit. I liked the inclusion of Method Man and Redman because How High is, in fact, a very underrated stoner movie, in my opinion. How High is terrific. There should have been 10 of those movies.
There's a sequel, but I don't think it has either of them in it.
Yeah, see, that doesn't work. Doesn't work for me.
The thing that really stood out to me in this movie, well, in addition to it just made me sad because it's just an old man repeating all his old gags from 25 years ago. Is just like the dramatic difference in performance quality because the movie is mostly his friends because that's Kevin Smith. That's how he operates.
Right.
So, but like when you'll get people who'll show up. So it's for most of the movie, it's him and Jason Mewes, and Jason Mewes is fine. He's Jay. But for a lot of it, it's like his kid or people who are like real shaky.
Yeah, and they're being asked to do a lot of emotional scenes. The I didn't have a father stuff was just like, whew, it's they're laying it on real thick, and I don't even know if that's the actress's fault or the line's fault.
It's both,
or the directing where it was just like, you laid this on way too thick.
It's both.
Like I thought his daughter had potential. Like she did good things here and there.
Sometimes she's pretty shaky.
It's more just that she's a new actress.
Yeah.
And it's just it's a lot to give to somebody. I don't know. She's like the emotional crux of the movie.
Yeah,
and it's like,
and it's like she's really only in movies because she's your kid, man. Like. Let's
right, and he makes fun of that.
Yeah,
it's so meta. He's Kevin Smith, the person, is a character in this.
Yes, he is.
It collapses in on itself.
It really
does.
This
movie,
yeah.
It's so meta. Like this is an inaccessible film.
It is.
Like you couldn't show this to anybody who wasn't familiar.
Yeah, but the point I was making is it's got a lot of real shaky performances, and then suddenly Matt Damon appears, or suddenly Rosario Dawson's there, or suddenly Ben Affleck is there, and you're like, oh right, acting. Like like, and even in that scene with like Method Man and Redman, it's like they're decent actors. So like it's like, oh shit, this is what that's right, this is what a movie is supposed to feel like.
Right.
Because it really feels like watching your friends fuck around for an hour and a half, and then occasionally a professional actor will show up.
Yeah, it's very bizarre.
It's jarring. It's a jarring movie,
including Val Kilmer, which I actually thought that was a smart cameo for him because he can't talk.
He can't speak.
Yeah.
So they have him be Blunt Man in the Blunt Man reboot, which is perfect because he was Batman, and and now it was. I thought that was a really nice cameo, and he does it well.
Yeah, he does.
He's Val Kilmer. What's he gonna do?
He's Val Kilmer. Well? He showed up. He didn't even know. Like I'm guessing he didn't know what the movie was until he showed up on the day, and he did a fine job because he's fucking, Yeah, they cram as many cameos as they're allowed to.
Yeah, it's all his friends. Like I think people tangentially worked with and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll go through the plot briefly.
Yeah, sure.
Jay and Silent Bob get arrested for marijuana, growing weed in New Jersey, and they go to court. And Justin Long makes them sign something to make him their lawyer, but it reveals that they sign away the rights to their names because they are making a Blunt Man and Chronic, or rather Blunt Man v Chronic reboot. That's clearly like a Zack Snyder, analog. And so they have to once again go to Hollywood. First, they go to see Brody and do the exact same scene.
They do the same scene. Jason Lee is
with
somehow
the same jokes.
Worse.
Yeah.
He's really bad in that scene, isn't he?
He's not giving a shit.
He's really phoning it in that scene.
There's a few names where it's like, I think there's, Jeff Anderson. He ain't in this either.
Well, he's not in it, yeah.
Yeah. Like, there's certain people who it feels like they were either, like, phoning it in or they were like, yeah, no. And so they decide we're going to go to Hollywood. he explains reboots to them, which is important to the actual structure of the movie, is that they're making a reboot, and he's talking about how much reboots suck. I liked little things, like I liked, holy shit, you guys still rent DVDs. I like little ideas like that with Jay and Silent Bob, that they're stuck in they're always one step behind.
Right, and there's dumb gags that are still fun, like it's the same gag that Jay can't ever get anyone's name right, so he thinks they're going to stop Kevin James. It's dumb shit like that, but it's like, oh, that's they're not jokes that make you laugh, they're jokes that make you go, oh, that's funny.
Yeah, that's cute.
Yeah, that's cute.
Yeah. So I legitimately liked Brody being like, you have to watch out for all the mall rats, and they're like, oh, like teenagers? He's like, no, literal rats running around. I liked that. That was a good like commentary on where the malls have gone. Yeah, because he's in a mall and the mall's dying.
Yeah.
And yeah, so they learned that it's directed by Kevin Smith, and they do a lot of, meta jokes about Kevin Smith. Yeah. They go to the airport. Molly Shannon is there. They do the too fat to fly stuff. You have a weight problem. Southwest Airline.
And I mean,
it's stuff like that where it's like, if you don't have any context, you're like, I don't know what they're talking about.
It's not even that you have to be familiar with the previous films in the View Askew universe. Like, you have to be familiar with Kevin Smith himself, like the real person.
Yeah, it's an anti-movie in the way it's structured. So they decide to do a ride app called Ride Me Now. Ralph Garman shows up as Ted Underhill and gives his credit card information, so they use that. They get a ride from Fred Armisen, who's
with his
fine
hater tots.
With his hater tots.
He's Fred Armisen. You're always going to get Fred Armisen out of him, and he shows up. So
exactly, he's doing good. His hater tots are cute.
It's funnier to me when Chris Jericho brings it back. Because Armisen goes on this rant about how like hater tots have been adopted by the alt-right for some reason.
Yeah, that was pretty great. Then we just cut to Matt Damon as Loki.
Yep.
And he's like, I was Loki before Tom Hiddleston. This is the stuff where I was like, I really wish they pressed more on that, because one of the beautiful things about Clerks 2 was when they started debating Lord of the Rings, and it was like, oh, right, this is modern nerd speak, because that's always been Kevin Smith. It's nerd debates. And realizing that you get Kevin Smith in the new nerd sphere is a really great thing. So I wanted more Marvel stuff.
Yeah.
And they just didn't quite have that.
No, they really kind of stayed away from it.
Which is weird because, like, they almost make a joke about it where it feels like Kevin Smith was, like, kind of legally bound with Marvel. So they do the thing earlier where they're making fun of stuff and they mention Marvel. And
Brody's like, don't you dare talk about Marvel. I live my life by those movies.
Yeah, I think that's the joke, is that
it must be.
it must be.
He doesn't want to bite that hand because he wants to be involved.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
but they make
who knows? We're
jabs.
guessing. We're completely speculating. We have no idea whether or not Kevin Smith gives a shit about that. But that's what the gag was.
Yeah, that's what the gag is.
Yeah.
And so I wish there was more of that, but whatever. Loki talks about what happened to him after Dogma, which is that he
became Jason Bourne.
Yeah, and he calls it my reborn identity. He's doing a great job.
Yeah.
It's so stupid, and he's doing a great job. Then we stop over at Moobies because we got to hit all the things.
Kate Micucci pulls a knife on him.
Yeah,
that was kind of a funny bit. It was one of those bits where it was like, it's another bit where you kind of see it coming right before it happens, and it's another gag that it's like, it's not a joke that makes you laugh. It's a joke that's like, oh, that was clever.
Yeah.
He's trying to Silent Bob has this gag where he has to speak to people by typing on his phone, and it's always an emoji. So he's trying to order something not meat, vegan, like veggies off the menu, and so he texts her an eggplant.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah,
I also like that they have a burger called a fur burger. I like that Movies always has the worst names for their Yeah, for their food.
Yeah.
Jennifer Smith shows up, his wife.
Yep.
They have sex in the bathroom. Grant Hicks is on the TV. We learn that Justice from Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back is back. That's when Jay has his pegging fantasy. I also noticed, I'm pretty sure the guy outside is the coffee guy from Clerks. The guy who's like, what do you mean there's no ice?
You mean I got to drink this coffee hot?
I think that's who that is because he's double fisting 2 coffees, and they clearly want him to be seen.
He's very noticeable, yeah.
Yeah, and so that's my guess, but I don't actually know. This is again the problem is that a lot of this scene is about how Silent Bob is vegan now, and it's like, okay.
Yeah.
Like, again, it's like a commentary on Kevin Smith.
Right, because Kevin Smith himself is vegan.
Yeah, and it's like, you don't have to make Silent Bob vegan too, but I guess we're doing this. And so it's like, I don't know.
I sort of, because like it's always like these movies has always been a way for him to comment on his own life with a minimal degree of separation, but still a degree of separation. So also, I don't hate that Silent Bob is vegan. It makes sense that he would be now.
Yeah, it actually kind of works because the idea is Silent Bob's always been the more mature person, and so he's growing as a human, while Jay is kind of the idea too.
Yeah.
It was nice seeing Grant Hicks from Dogma, which is just Dante's cousin.
I think
in the canon.
Yeah.
So they go to Justice's house.
Was that one of the house? Because they make another reference to Shermer, Illinois, and they do a really indulgent establishing shot of the house. Is that a house from a John Hughes movie?
I bet it is.
It must be.
I bet it is.
It's not the Home Alone house because that house I recognize. But
oh yeah, but it's probably one of them.
I feel like it's probably in a John Hughes movie.
Yeah. Oh, I liked some of this. All right, these are the blunt force jokes that I always like. And is when Jay, like, she says she's a mother and he goes, ew, you're someone's fucking mom now? Like, when it's just, like, so the wrong thing to say.
Yeah, or that he didn't come to visit her in jail because they couldn't fuck.
Yeah, and when he meets her friends, they're all very diverse, and he has just something extremely racist to say about each one of them.
Yeah.
And it's just like, and when he's like, because they wouldn't let us fuck. And I love that Justice accepts the answer.
Right, and that was the gag in Strike Back, too.
Yeah.
Is that she doesn't see... She thinks all of his
she doesn't see how obviously...
dumb, ignorant shit is cute or sweet.
I like the line where she's like, you know the meth heads or whatever, and she's like, they only look like meth heads because they're from New Jersey. I didn't mind a few parts, like Rosario Dawson being like, whispering, oh, this is Mr. Come Quick Thumb Dick.
Yep.
But yeah, we learn that Justice is married to a lady. She has Jay's kid, who is played by Kevin Smith's daughter. And now we get the actual point of the movie. And it's very similar to a more successful movie that came out also recently, Bill and Ted Face the Music. Because it's about these stoners dealing with the fact that they have kids.
Yeah.
And Jay goes into like a weird dad mode. He doesn't know how to handle it. This is the stuff where I was like, I like this idea. I like where what you're going for here. Because the kids are kind of fuck ups. Or, well, she's actually an honor student, but she's like, she threatens to stab them on the front lawn. Yep. I liked that escalation. She has a friend who is deaf, so she's naturally a Silent Bob type. Mm-hmm. So they get, basically, Justice leaves, and the kids strong-arm Jay and Silent Bob to take them to Hollywood with them because they also have a mission. And then, yeah, they go to Hollywood, they do adventures on the way, they eat edibles, which, again, I really like that idea.
Right, it's like the evolution of,
Yeah, of stoner stuff. Mm-hmm. It's old stoner meeting new stoner.
Yeah.
And, like... stuff where she gives them the edibles. She's like, these fuckers are gonna die. I liked the line, deaf people know how to grow weed, asked by Jay.
Yeah.
Little things like that. So, and again, basically they're setting up the idea that they set up of a reboot, which is that at the beginning, Brody complains that reboots are basically the same thing, but with more diversity, right? And so we meet this diverse group of young women. Oh, more diversity and for young people.
That's part of it. He's the main definition he gives is it's the same thing with just enough changes to make it technically a new thing.
Mm-hmm. And he explains it very cynically.
Yeah, it's extremely cynical, which is front loaded in the film. So it's like, oh, is this going to be like some old nerd ranting about this shit?
It's sort of the point, which is that I would actually argue that the most delightful people in this is her group of friends.
Yeah.
They are very charismatic.
When he brings it around at the end to be like, you shouldn't be cynical about that because that's the point.
Exactly.
It's that whole scene with Affleck.
Yeah. But it's like, that's the core of this movie that I think is really well done.
It takes too long to get there.
Yeah, and it's also not funny.
It is a jokeless hour and 30-minute ride.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
So basically they meet all these girls, a diverse group, a Middle Eastern girl, a girl from China, or so they think. And he realizes they're like a reboot of Justice. They have the blueprints like Mallrats. There's so many callbacks. They use a pedophile website to get a ride.
Yeah.
And so they run into the Klan, all sorts of adventures. They get to Chronic Con, which is the Blunt Man and Chronic thing, and basically we run into everybody else. Jason Biggs, James Vanderbeek.
Yep.
It's all Jay and Silent Bob themed. Chris Hemsworth. We run into the cast of Clerks, the Comic Book Men cast, that's one where it's again like you're not involved in this.
We don't know who these people are. Like I never watched Comic Book Men. I don't know any of those guys.
Yeah, and then I think the scene that you were going to get to, which is the only good scene, which is running into Holden McNeil.
Yeah.
And there's a lot here because it's Holden McNeil and Alyssa, played by Joey Lauren Adams. Mm-hmm. Both people have had falling outs with Kevin Smith. So they were two people that I was genuinely like, wow, oh crap, they're here. Because I didn't expect to see them.
No.
They briefly apologize for chasing Amy.
Yeah, yeah, she does. Like, they reveal that Alyssa's character is making the Chasing Amy comic into a series for Netflix because, that story really... And she's like, that story should have been told from the viewpoint of a queer person or a queer woman. Really anyone but a cis white man.
Yeah.
That's like, that's true.
That is very true, yeah. Yeah, and so they do that apology, and then Holden basically drops the idea, which is he has a touching conversation with Jay involving. It's revealed that Holden has a kid with Alyssa. That they're not a couple, but he jizzed in a cup, and of course it's Jason Mewes' kid.
Yeah,
and it's a cute scene where he talks about how kids are our reboots, that you don't really, and I don't know how true this is, but he says, like, when you have kids, you don't really have a third act because your story changes. And it's the point that every boomer needs to hear, or needed to hear 10 years ago, which is like, sometimes you got to step down and let the youngs
he does
take over.
He says it in nerd speak, like he's like, but it's still like really, it's like a really powerful sentiment, weirdly, where he's like, he's talking about, I've lived my entire life up to this point. Like I was the star of the movie. Like this is a story about me. I'm Bruce Wayne. And it's like, and now I'm realizing I'm not Bruce Wayne. I'm Thomas Wayne.
Or Bruce Wayne's mom. Yeah. Whose name escapes me.
Yeah. And then he looks like,
that's cute.
Spikes the camera. Yeah.
Yeah.
But like that point was like, that hit me because, I'm reaching a similar part of my life where it's like, shit, it isn't about me. Like,
it's a ridiculously sweet film that grazed my heart.
Yeah.
Didn't finger it, but and that's what's neat about this movie. And then looking at Bill and Ted is I think they both ultimately come from the same
sentiment,
place.
I think. Yeah. Or a similar sentiment. Yeah.
Yeah. Where they're like, listen, we're old. We're way past our prime doing this shit. We can't just keep doing these movies about like old stoners. There are new stoners. Mm-hmm. Like there's a new generation. Let's appeal to them. They're more diverse. They're more empowered. They have they're more evolved in a lot of ways. And so there's this heart at this movie, and it's throughout it, this thread that's just kind of covered in a lot of other stuff, like with the edibles and with, like talking to Redman and Method Man about fatherhood.
Yeah.
And it's just like, this generation, they've got old.
Yeah. We got old.
And it's time to pass it on to younger people.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a sweet idea. That's a sweet scene.
Yeah, it's like you said, it's the core of the film. It's the heart of the movie is that idea.
Yeah, and Ben Affleck is doing good.
He's an actor
for Ben Affleck. Yeah, and he's another actor who could always do Kevin Smith stuff.
Yeah, it really is, because Affleck's not like the greatest actor, but like it really is noticeable. Yeah, he has a similar quality with Kevin Smith material that Matt Damon does, where he makes it feel like a real person.
Yeah, and so. That's the core, and basically it comes down to Jay and Silent Bob decide, instead of trying to stop the movie from getting made, they're going to help his daughter, who is trying to get her friend as an extra
into the movie.
And that's when we learn that one of her friends is actually a Russian spy.
Yep.
And things get really stupid.
Dressed like Black Widow. I mean, it was fine. It was fine.
It's fun. Well, it's a callback because Jay is like, do you guys have cat suits under there? And then she actually does.
Yeah.
And it's part of the reboot.
And there's a fun gag where he stalls the Russian spy lady until he gets to the front of the crowd, until I can get next to this guy with the big gun, and the guy throws him the gun, and it's a prop.
Yeah, and he's like,
and he's genuinely confused by it.
Yeah, there's some fun stuff. Tommy Chong in the clip
as Alfred.
I did like the Blunt Man Chronic clip where they just get high and then they're just talking about.
Yeah, they're just talking about
like
shit.
Size is like relative, man.
Yeah,
I gave a dog a $20 bill once. It didn't work out.
That was fucking great. Yeah, that was Tommy Chong's.
Yeah,
because they start talking about. Like, I can never pronounce her last name. Melissa Benoist, or she plays Supergirl, and I think Kevin Smith directed a few episodes, which is why she's in it. She plays Chronic in Reboot. But
I didn't know who the hell that was.
Yeah, she's Supergirl.
Okay, good for her.
She says like, she starts talking about trying to explain money to dogs.
Yeah.
And then it just cuts to Tommy Chong. It's like, yeah, I gave a dog a $20 bill one time. It didn't work out.
It's a great idea, which is that they get high and then that's
talking about dumb shit. Yeah.
Yeah. So now we have like Kevin Smith as a character, and he's playing like a jerk version of himself.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is
He's playing his mayor character from Another Wolf Cop.
Yes, it's he is playing he plays a good Kevin Smith.
He does. He plays a good dickhead, like a good douche.
Yeah, it's very Last Action Hero at this point.
Yes,
because Silent Bob switches with Kevin Smith. They do a duck soup thing, and so he gets the girl to be a extra by assuming the identity. And then that's when, the secret agent from Russia, she's going to execute Kevin Smith for the internet. And then basically Jay reveals, I'm your dad. They do a lot of the same jokes. They do Marvel going to sue somebody from Strike Back because we get Iron Bob, which is Silent Bob gets in an Iron Man armor.
He sure does.
And then they fight. Kevin Smith, the character, starts getting high and talking about the movie about what he would do if this was a movie.
Yep.
And then those things happen.
happen.
The movie has collapsed on itself
it really implodes.
Point. I will say I really like the line, my precious podcasting ears.
Yes, that was great.
Any podcasting reference was fun.
I'm all about it.
Yeah. And then we cut to in front of the Quick Stop again. Jay is talking to her and trying to give her fatherly advice, even though he didn't have a father, which is, I believe, a real thing about Jason Mewes. And because Jason Mewes had a rough childhood, I know that.
I sort of assumed.
Yeah, and then Daughter by Pearl Jam starts playing. Yep. And Kevin Smith has that ability to make me, like, feel sentimental about songs that I never would have, and this is one of them. Whereas, like, I don't want to feel emotions because of this Pearl Jam song.
He generally picks good needle drops.
He does. He really does.
He's good at it.
Fucking the Clerks 2 ending. It was like, fuck.
Yeah,
perfect.
Soul Asylum.
Yeah. And again, that's a band I couldn't give a shit about. And then when he does it, I'm like, oh, that's perfect.
Yep.
And then Dante
1979 in the same film. The Smashing Pumpkins song.
Yep. Dante shows up. There's gum in the
I did
lock.
like the reveal. If you watch to the end of the credits, because he plays outtakes over the entire credits. So if you just sit there and watch the outtakes until the end, you get an additional scene where they reveal that it's been Jay and Silent Bob who've been cramming gum in the locks of the Quick Stop for the past 25 years.
That's beautiful.
I liked that. That was
so
fun.
good.
It was a fun little button to put on the end.
I liked the little Stan Lee bit at the end too, because it was one of those where it's like, oh, of course he wanted Stan Lee to be in
it was
this.
It was a news story, like, because that was during an interview he did. You can see he's wearing like an IMDb shirt, like it's something he did during Comic-Con, I think in 2018. I think.
Yeah. And of course Stan Lee
passed away, so he had to rewrite the ending.
Stan Lee passed away, but the last Marvel movie he was in, that was a really sweet idea. Him rehearsing Mallrats on the bus for Captain Marvel. That was huge. Like, that was such a nice... Like, it's one of those weird things, and nobody owes Kevin Smith anything, but there was always a story Kevin Smith had at Skywalker Ranch where, like, he was at the cafeteria and George Lucas was there, and George Lucas purposefully avoided him. And it's like, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then later Kevin Smith actually got married at Skywalker Ranch, and later people were like, you're not supposed to do that. Like, did you check with anybody? And it was like, no, not really. The point is that it was nice of Marvel to actually give him a nod, because he is like, it was the same with having Star Wars. I don't know how Star Wars would ever give him a nod, but maybe it did at some point.
He might be in it somewhere.
He always represented the nerdy fans, you know?
Yeah.
Like, since the beginning. So...
Since the 90s, yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, that's the film. It really is like, boy, like, I can't be mad at it, but I can't expect anybody to find this movie good.
Yeah, it
is fundamentally a bad movie. It's
a weird... In comparing it with Clerks, which, like I was saying earlier, all of his movies have sort of been biographical with a small degree of separation.
Yeah.
This movie still has that, obviously, because it's clear, he has a kid who's an adult now, and is moving on out into the world and in movies and shit. So he's clearly thinking about how, like, that the stage of his life being all about him has long been over. What does that mean for me? My life needs to change now. Like, my story is changing, et cetera, et cetera. It's weird to put. I don't know. It's hard. It's hard combining that sort of semi-autobiographical slant with a movie that is also a love letter to his fans, and also this huge piece of meta commentary on his own career. It's a really strange hodgepodge of elements.
There's a lot. Yeah, it's not an accessible movie, and I don't think I think he realizes.
Of course he did. Yeah,
he didn't make this movie expecting it to be praised. I think he knew, like, this, we're kind of half-assing it. There's like 4 logos at the front, and they're all Kevin Smith companies, which I always think is funny. They do The View Askew. They do like 2 Jay and Silent Bob, Smod, whatever.
Like Smod, and then like Iron Bob. I think they're all production companies he has with his different groups of friends. I
think so. And that's what I want. If we are getting into how it compares to Clerks, I think the big difference that was glaring, and you actually already pointed it out, is that when you look at the original Clerks and you look at his original films, his priority is to get actors front and center, and then he puts his friends as background characters. Mm-hmm. And this is literally the opposite.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the problem. Is that it's what you said, is every now and then an actor shows up and you're like, oh, right,
this is what a movie is supposed to feel like. Well, it seems like this movie, and again, this movie's clearly for his fans. It's also, he had something to say with it, but it's not really a story. Like his other movies, like Clerks and Mallrats, yeah. I mean, but like we're comparing it to Clerks, but like so Clerks is a story. It is about characters, and them going through a day in their lives, and then there's conflict and stuff. This movie isn't that.
Right.
This movie is a lot of in jokes and references, and one scene where Kevin Smith just wrote an essay about what he was feeling and had Ben Affleck perform it.
Yeah, and it's a good scene.
It's a good scene, yeah.
Here's
yeah. Go ahead.
Here's what I think might be the problem too. All right, so go back to. I know we're not comparing it to this movie, but Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. All the references in there are all previous films, right? They reference movies because that's a Dogma thing, which later gets expanded for Clerks. But movies is in Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. They reference all those films. What movies happened between that movie and this one?
In general, or in Kevin Smith's career?
In the View Askew universe. Clerks 2?
Clerks 2, that's it.
Yeah. So, when you're making this, you just do all the same references.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing else to reference. And Clerks 2 didn't add anything. It just added movies, which was already existing. So the problem, I think, is like... And then he starts referencing Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back on top of that, and it's just like maybe you should have gone a different route here.
Yeah.
Maybe you shouldn't have copied the movie that was already made to reference all the other movies. It just feels very redundant because all the like victory laps, all the cameos, it's like, yeah, I know. You did that in the other one. And that one felt like the more genuine one because I know like in that movie, they were literally like turning away actors who wanted to be in it. There's a cut scene with Adam Carolla, and it's like, good cut, Kevin Smith. And so like this one, it just feels like less enthusiastic. He says it at one point that he guilted everybody to be in the movie because he had a heart attack. And so I don't know. This just feels
it's low energy.
Yeah, it's low energy. It's less focused. And it feels like they're going through a lot of the motions,
right? It feels,
and they didn't put much thought into making a plot, because the message is genuine and it's there at the core. The reboot stuff, it's just that it would have been nice because they make it like this meta joke where it's like, yeah, we're rebooting the previous film, and it's like, but like you said, reboots suck, and you're not wrong.
Yeah.
Like, just doing the same thing again is just really not what we need.
And it feels like less of a celebration this time. It feels tired. Like everybody feels tired, and the references are tired because they're all the same references. So it has that sad... It doesn't have the excitement of like a 10-year reunion.
Right.
You know, it has like the sad of like a 15 or 20-year reunion where like some of the people are dead. Most of them didn't show up.
Yeah.
Everybody looks old and tired. Like, it's just like...
Yeah, going back to Clerks and Clerks 3, Clerks 3 is honestly where he could have done this message, and he could have done it better, I think. And maybe he will, because it's... The Clerks we talked about was always checking in, where it's like, where are you in life at this point? Where are you in life at this point? Jay and Silent Bob, the first movie, wasn't really about coming of age. It was about... celebrating the View Askew universe.
Yeah.
And so that's the weird thing too, which is like we talked about Clerks as being coming of age, and then Clerks 2 is like, okay, we are of age and we're not going anywhere, and this is the next step. And Clerks 3 is going to be like, okay, we're old and we're dealing with fatherhood. That makes sense as a progression. Putting that in this feels like it was jumping the gun a bit.
Yeah, it's also I have a lot more hope for Clerks 3.
Me too,
because they have two clearly defined characters. There's a storyline to continue following. It's more focused. It's not like Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back was this big, goofy meta joke, just celebrating, hey, look how this kid from Jersey made good.
Right. That movie is also not an accessible film. It just has the benefit of being more funny.
Yeah.
But I would say like both films have that same problem of being inaccessible. And so it's just that they didn't do the work to like this. I would have forgiven all of this if they had just made the jokes funnier.
Yeah.
In this,
it's not. There's not enough gags in it to like. The Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back does have the same problem with accessibility, but it's still funny on its own. Like you can still watch it and laugh at most of it without understanding the movies
and
that
it's
they're
all,
referencing.
It's all still stupid jokes and
Yeah.
stuff like the clit, which is like, that was a very funny joke when it came out. Because again, it's like a blunt force joke.
Right. It was funny because
it
of how
slams you over the head.
Right. It's funny because how dumb and obvious it is.
Yeah, and just having Jon Stewart be
you
doing
have
this
all
whole
these
thing
people,
is-
like Jon Stewart, just saying it just as seriously as he can.
Yeah.
Yeah. Feels like an man. It's just there's
not enough original jokes.
There's not enough original jokes. There's not enough new things to celebrate. It's still celebrating the same 4 movies.
Yeah. There was some exactly. That's the part of it as well. It didn't feel like it was needed. Like the first joke is the goodbye horses joke from Clerks 2.
And it doesn't
right?
make any sense. Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense in the context. I did like, what's his name? Polka Dot Man.
David Desmalkian.
Being like, where's his dick? Where's his dick? Like, not understanding
He's killing it. Like, if you watch him and next to the SWAT captain, who's also... I think he was on Chappelle's show.
He sure was.
Or he's saying like, get the fuck out. And like, if you watch Desmalkian, he's like mouthing all the swear words that the SWAT captain says as he says them. It's just this weird bit of business he's doing that was really funny.
Yeah. That's pretty good. Like that sort of moments where it's like, okay, but the joke itself, the goodbye horses, isn't the funny thing in that scene.
No.
And they've extended it a little bit, but like it, it's a lot of like, remember this? And it's like, I do.
I do.
I do remember that joke.
It was funny.
Yeah.
Doesn't make a lot of sense here.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know why he's doing it here, but...
Yeah.
And that was Clerks. Clerks 2 is the good version of...
Yes.
We're going to add to this. Because Clerks 2 could have very easily done all the same jokes.
It could have.
And instead, they extended the characters in their natural way. They made Randall just as offensive and awful as always, but in new ways. They made Jay and Silent Bob have new shit. You know, like, that's... The Goodbye Horses is an extension of Jay dancing.
Yeah.
And so that's a great version to do. Like I don't know. There just needed to be a little more. Yeah, a little more work.
Yeah. That's that part. It feels lazy.
It really does feel lazy.
And the other thing that sticks out about when you compare this to Clerks is like, man, he really hasn't evolved much as a filmmaker, which is fine.
Oh yeah.
But it becomes really stark. I mean, like he moves the camera now, but like
yeah. I would say other movies he's done. You know, your Red States and your Tusks. I haven't seen Tusk, but like. I imagine those are the ones where he's doing a little more work. This is just, we're going to put the camera down. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But yeah, you're right.
And so many of the cameos are just obvious that they weren't in the same room with the people.
Yes.
It just feels a lot like the Arrested Development season 4. Where it's just like, why are we doing this?
A lot of the same jokes.
It's a lot of the same jokes. It's clear a lot of these people couldn't be together at the same time.
They couldn't get the same energy.
It's low energy. Yeah,
But I do have more hope for Clerks 3.
I have a lot of hope for Clerks 3. Because Clerks 2, I think, was very successful in terms of updating the characters, continuing their story arc, finding interesting ways for that story and these characters to develop and evolve in a way that made sense for them, that still felt they still felt like the same characters from the first movie, even though it was like 16 years later.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's part of kind of what disappointed me about this movie is that Kevin Smith can do this better. Like we've seen him do this better. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. It was just,
and there again.
Yeah.
There's hints of good ideas.
Mm-hmm.
I thought.
Yeah.
There were little things where it's like, yeah, talk about Marvel. Yeah, the reboot idea. Yeah, new generation. Talking about edibles. Talking about the evolution of stoners in general. There's little gags in it that I do like. It was just like they're few and far in between. And they never landed like a really big laugh. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, I don't know what else there is to say about it. As a Kevin Smith fan, it's always delightful to see all the shit from the other stuff.
Of course, yeah. I'm not gonna lie. When they stumble into the cast of Clerks panel and everything becomes black and white, that warmed my coal black heart. Yeah.
Yeah, I went ooh.
Like it's Veronica. I haven't seen her since Clerks.
Yeah, that's great. It's great because it makes you feel like, oh, okay, they're still good. They're all right. Everybody's all right. Ooh, it's Jason Biggs. Haven't seen him in a while.
God, yeah. He's saying he's been busy being a real dirtbag on Twitter.
He sure has.
It's funny because that scene has that energy. Like it's him and James Vanderbeek, and like Jason Biggs is being real loud and offensive and hyperbolic about how terrible the reboot is, and Vanderbeek, first of all, looks like he's just barely putting up with Jason Biggs.
Yeah.
And then everything he says is like, I think it looks fine. Like he's just like
I love the dynamic that they hate each other.
Yeah.
That was in Strike Back as well. That's a funny dynamic of just having them constantly bickering.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would say don't watch this unless you're a big Kevin Smith fan. And I think even if you're a big Kevin Smith fan, you're going to be like, it's one of his weaker ones. But
especially since, like, truly the first 20 minutes of this movie are really tough.
Yeah.
It's 3 very long scenes that don't have very many laughs in them, and then even when you get to the first big, hey, it's Brody again. Like you get to the first big scene where they're bringing back a fan favorite character. Like Jason Lee is so phoning it in that
really
scene.
Is.
It's like that scene is a bummer. So it's like shit.
Yeah.
Like there was a couple of times in the first half hour of this movie where if we weren't doing it for a podcast, I would have turned it off.
Yeah, that scene with Jason Lee is like, man, is this going to be the movie?
Is this the movie? Yeah.
Yeah,
it's like
this is not great.
He front loads it with like the worst parts of the movie are the first parts of the movie. So it's like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah. And yeah, everybody looks just tired.
Everybody's just tired. Yeah.
It's yeah. But it gets better, but that doesn't mean it gets amazing.
Yep, he's got fun. He's got fun cameos, like you said. Matt Damon shows up. Adam Brody shows up as a Hot Topic clerk, and that was great.
Right, Adam Brody is just like, huh?
Because remember, he's in Copland.
Right.
Yeah.
You mean Cop Out?
A Cop Out. That's right, not Copland.
Like,
boy, if Kevin Smith directed Copland.
That'd be something. I want more Chris Hemsworth than Kevin Smith. I think Chris Hemsworth, for the longest time, we've realized he can do comedy really well.
Yeah. He's really good at it.
Obviously. Yeah. And Kevin Smith and Chris Hemsworth, I feel like it's a very smart fit.
Yeah. The Hemsworth stuff with the hologram was really good.
That's the thing is like I like that he puts people his friends in. I like that. But then whenever you get an actor in Kevin Smith, it's like, wow, it's really neat to watch someone actually perform these lines.
Exactly.
Who's an actor, because they're hard lines to perform sometimes, or it's a weird comedy. And some people just nail it. Matt Damon nails
really
Kevin
does.
Smith.
He really does. And so does Affleck.
Yeah, and so does Affleck. I think Affleck a little less so. Affleck still feels like he's reading off a prompter.
A little bit, but it felt more natural. It felt like, compare it to like Jason Lee, who just feels like he's reading off a teleprompter.
Yeah, which is a shame because in Mallrats, I thought he actually nailed it as well.
He's great, and he's great in he's great in most things. Like in My Name Is Earl, he's fucking amazing.
Yeah,
it's like and in Clerks 2, he's fucking amazing.
Yeah.
In his little cameo. It's just in this movie, it's like, boy, he doesn't care for whatever reason.
He's like, I don't want to play an old Brody.
Yeah.
It is a bummer, that character, because unlike... I mean, there's a lot of this. It's just, he hasn't evolved at all. Not even a little. He just owns a comic book shop.
He's the same guy he's always been. He's wearing the same outfit.
Yeah, he's wearing the same outfit. It's slightly different, but it's the same. Yeah, there's so much of that. Just so many references. On top of references now. And it's just like, man, I don't know. That's the is referencing jokes that you did. It just doesn't work when he's like, and on that we cue the music and then they do the same thing. It's like, yeah, but you did this already in the last one.
Gag. Yeah. It's
and you did it better.
Gag.
Yeah. Like it just doesn't work. You just can't do that. You can't do the same goddamn jokes.
There's also that bizarre through line with the dude from Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead.
Oh,
where he says the dishes are done, man, at one point. And in my mind, I immediately flagged it. I was like, oh, that's from Don't Tell Mom. And then they say it, and then they bring it back a few times in the movie. And then the actor who says that line in Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead shows up in the end at the Chronic Con.
Yes.
But they also... Like at the end of the movie, Jay's daughter quotes Broken Arrow.
Keith Coogan.
Keith Coogan is the actor, yeah. But yeah, at the end, like they're talking about Dogman. He's like, yeah, then me and Silent Bob went and beat some renegade angels, and the Catholic Church still hated our asses. And then she says, fuck them if they can't take a joke. And I'm like, oh, that's from Broken Arrow. Are they about to reference Broken Arrow? No. So there's a strange thing where he'll lift dialogue verbatim from like his older films for gags, and then from like other comedies for weird through lines that pay off just by having the actor who said it show up. Like that's the payoff. Right. Like, the movie itself doesn't connect to Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead at all in any way. It's just this weird thing they included. Sort of like Morris Day and the Time and Silent Bob Strike Back.
I super don't mind that. I mean, it's same with Hemsworth, is they have a scene where they talk about how hot Chris Hemsworth is. All the teen girls, and then he shows up.
But Dave, there is a world of difference between planting seeds that lead to an actual Chris Hemsworth cameo and planting seeds that leads to a cameo from the dude from Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead.
Yeah, I have a theory. And I don't know if Kevin Smith knows he's doing this. Is that like Morris Day and the Time is actually a good example. It's the equivalent of the moment where they do "Look, kids, it's Mark Hamill" in Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, where they felt the need to put that on screen, and it's more because I feel like they didn't know if people would recognize him, in the outfit. I think like Morris Day and the Time, for example, I didn't think about them for ages. So I needed them to bring it up at the beginning. So then when they show up at the end, I'm like, yeah. Like, I think that's part of it, is like, Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead. If they just brought that actor out, everybody would be like, I don't know who that is. And they even refer to him as like Keith Coogan from Don't Tell Mom's the Babysitter's Dead. Yeah. Like, I think Kevin Smith knew, like, this isn't exactly
this is for me.
Yeah, exactly. It's not, nobody's gonna know what the fuck I'm talking about, so I'm gonna have to hammer it home. I think there's a bit of that.
Yeah.
And that's fine. I don't know.
Yeah, it's whatever. I don't know.
It's a fine. Sorry, I don't know why I did that.
I don't know why you did that either.
Look, but that's the thing, is this movie isn't hurting anybody.
No.
It has, I think, a good moral in it. Mm-hmm. If you find it extremely funny, then good for you, you know?
I mean,
I had the same feeling about the Bill and Ted, where I liked the Bill and Ted, but it was like, you know, if this isn't your cup of tea, it's not your cup of tea. Because I knew people who didn't like it. Mm-hmm. And it's like, that's fine, you know? Like, it's a very specific type of humor. In this case, though, it's just, most of it's just jokes that they already did.
Yeah. Oh. And it's a perfectly well-intentioned movie. He clearly made it for his fans, you know, and also for himself, because he had something he wanted to say, and this was, I guess, the best way for him to say it. The idea of connecting that feeling of stepping back and being a father, and my life is no longer about me, it's about my family, does connect to a reboot, so I understand that instinct. So, it's like you said at the top, I can't really be mad at this movie.
Yeah. And I do think, that's smart, the tying it into the reboot. It's more than I thought they were going to do when they tie it all to fatherhood. It was like, that's actually really cool.
No, it weirdly makes sense in the moment when you're watching the movie. You're like, oh yeah, I guess these ideas are related.
Yeah. So it's really, for me, it's the short game. It's the execution where I'm like I liked I don't mind the broad strokes of this, and some of the jokes made me laugh, but it's just like, I wish you did a few more drafts. I wish you spent a little more time on the jokes, on the humor.
Yeah.
Because most of the jokes just didn't land with me, and I'm someone who's a fan of Kevin Smith's humor. So, it's
do more jokes like Brandon St. Randy saying his name on Grindr is Dick Wolfer.
Yeah.
That's dumb as hell, and it makes me laugh.
Yeah.
That's the kind of stupid shit that
It's super dumb.
But it's always been the jokes from a Kevin Smith movie. They're always like that.
Yeah. Yeah, they are. In fact, the Glenn Ross joke does not feel like a Kevin Smith joke to me. And I still loved it. It's not even a joke. I think it's barely a joke, and I loved it.
I mean, it's that scene is pretty funny. I think that was a fine scene. I think, but it's
then they just throw shit on.
They just throw shit on some Nazis, whatever.
And then they say the line from Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. They call them dirty sheep fuckers. Mm-hmm. It's like the punchline of that scene doesn't work for me. It's just Silent Bob choosing that moment to talk and just doing all the lines from Alec Baldwin's Glenn Ross speech.
There's something that delighted me about seeing Kevin Smith perform the Glenn Ross speech.
And he's doing a good job.
Yeah. To an angrily confused Chris Jericho.
Yes.
That's the icing on the cake.
It's a unicorn. It's a real unicorn moment.
Yeah.
Oh, fuck.
It's like you read that sentence and you're like, that shouldn't be a sentence.
Yeah. Oh, it's real weird. All right. Is that it?
I think that's it, yeah.
Yeah, next time we're doing Mallrats.
Ooh.
Right? And then Yoga Hosers, I believe, would be the two pair-ups.
Sure, yeah.
Which I haven't seen that one. I
have
know
not.
Johnny Depp's in it, so that's not going to be great.
Well, his kid's in it, too. So.
His kid's in it, too, yeah.
Like, their kids are friends, so what are you going to do?
Yeah, exactly.
Mallrats was actually the first Kevin Smith movie I saw. I didn't see Clerks until after Mallrats.
Oh, wow. I saw them all in order. I predict this about Mallrats. It is going to be dated.
I tried to show Marina that movie, and she fucking hated it.
Yeah.
She hated Brody.
All the Brody, the statutory rape stuff, the ending is really silly. It's very... And I think it's also like, it feels like it's the one with most studio meddling in it. So it's like a little more cartoony.
Well, kind of. Like Kevin Smith is real cartoony.
Yes, but I remember it being like, I don't know. I enjoy that movie. There's a lot of good jokes in it. But I do know that like the broad, it's one where it's like most of the women are like, you need to get away from these guys.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah. But I thought there was a lot of fun stuff in that, but we'll get to that.
We'll see. Yeah. Well, we will revisit Mallrats.
Yeah. And until then, thank you, Nerd Numbers at Nerd Numbers, for producing this. Thank you all for listening. If you're interested, you can go on our Patreon, patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. We have exclusive podcasts on there, like Tom and Jeff Watch Batman, and Fox Mulder is a Maniac, and Star Trek The Next Futurama. Those are all for $5 a month. You get them all.
It's a real fucking deal, you guys.
It's a real fucking deal.
Real deal.
Correct.
We also like real steel. Real steel.
Like real steel.
Yeah. Like Hugh Jackman and a boxing robot.
Sure.
We also have a store, gamefullyunemployed.com. Head over there. You'll find a link to our Teespring store, where we have all kinds of rad designs for t-shirts, stickers, posters, check it out. It's cool. We got great, fun, original art on there. That's also so self-referential. You can put those shirts on in public, and nobody will know what the fuck they mean.
Yeah.
So it fits perfectly with the Jay and Silent Bob reboot.
Yeah, Tom, we went so long without having to reference Real Steel. We should make a shirt with us as Real Steel.
We should.
Right?
That should be our before sunset, right? Like Kevin Smith has Clerks. Ours is referencing Real Steel.
Yeah. So let's get that shirt going.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'll throw that into the shirt pot and start a stirring it up.
Stir that shit up.
Yeah. All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Noise, smoking weed, doing coke, drinking beers.